You're listening to The Wedding Whisperer with Sarah Burton of Simply Love Studio in Lexington, Kentucky. Today's guest is going to be one that you have most likely never heard of before. I actually met her this spring in Chicago at a podcast event, and we were talking about how she could be on my podcast because she actually has a podcast of her own. And I was sharing with her a little bit about how typically my podcast is geared more toward the Lexington, a little bit of Central Kentucky area. And so I wanted to keep vendors that were related to that. And she actually came up with a really good topic, one I had not thought about before, because she is actually engaged herself. And I'm honestly really excited to talk to her about it today because it is something that a lot of people experience, a lot of people go through. It is normal. I just want to make sure that there's not a stereotype around it and that people feel comfortable going into the wedding planning process. Alyson, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Sarah. I'm super excited to finally be having this conversation with you.
You are actually a wedding planner yourself in the Chicago area.
Yes, I am. So I am the owner and lead wedding planner of Birdcage and Blushers Weddings. I service mostly the Chicagoland area, but I have been known to hop on a plane and travel when the occasion arises. I've been in the industry for over 10 years doing weddings and events, and I've had my business as an independent business owner for about 5 years. So it's been a wild ride, but I'm just one of those crazy people that just loves weddings and loves wedding planning.
What was your first podcast that you did? I know it was about a TV show.
Yeah, and we're on our little hiatus right now. So
Okay.
So me and my fiance, we do a podcast, a recap podcast for the TV show The Voice, the singing competition.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're on a break, but I think The Voice comes back next month, so we're mentally preparing to get back into the swing of things ourselves.
Do you have an overall favorite winner of all of the Voice seasons put together?
The one that won 2 seasons ago, Asher Havan, was like, this man was just superhuman. I was literally bawling every time this man opened his mouth and sang. And I was like, if this man does not win, I'm just going to like flip over a desk and just quit life. I think that was probably my favorite winner so far. But there's been a lot of really awesome artists and contestants on the show over the years. But Asher's definitely a standout for sure.
I remember whenever The Voice first came out and the very first night it was on TV. I feel like that was even maybe when I still had it would have been when I still had cable. So it's been out for a while now.
It's been out for a hot minute.
We were having storms in Kentucky that night. Mm-hmm. And so they were going out of the show and going to live weather updates. And so everybody was mad because they were like cutting out, and everybody's like, we've been waiting on this show. Yeah. So you could get on the Facebook comments and stuff. People are like, take it back to the TV.
That is hilarious.
I mean, it's enough that I still remember that happening.
Yeah.
Because it happened several times. The meteorologists were like, guys, like this is serious. Like you'll get back to the TV. It's fine.
And it's like, no, we want our show. We don't care what's happening outside.
Yes. You actually have a wedding planning podcast now as well. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that.
I have a passion for podcasting. And so this is the first podcast where it's just me, solo, no co-hosts and all that other kind of stuff. So I think for me, because there's a lot of wedding podcasts out there, I really wanted to create a space to talk about the mental and emotional aspects that come into play when you're planning a wedding. Like, obviously, if you want me to tell you how to map out a floor plan or, do a wedding timeline, like we can talk about those things. But I really wanted to kind of peel back the layers of planning because being wedding planners, we're just kind of flies on the wall, or like we get these like really strange kind of like insight into people's regular lives outside of wedding planning. And there's so many things that come up from like helping them navigate family dynamics to how to deal with, loss when you're planning a wedding. These are just things that like most couples, like they're just like totally blindsided by. I really wanted to create a space where, I can validate a lot of those normal feelings and emotions that people deal with when they're wedding planning and not have it feel like they're the only ones that like deal with these things. And it's like, it's totally normal. It's totally okay. And just kind of like normalizing that. So it's really been super fun so far.
Awesome.
Any day now.
It's fine. Our topic today is about divorce and second marriages. It is often that a couple comes to me and they will reference that it is their second marriage and they don't always feel comfortable spending the same amount of money or even having a wedding sometimes. And we don't ever want you to feel that way. You deserve to be loved, you deserve to be celebrated with your family. And that's what Alyson and I are going to talk about today. Alyson, you are engaged, but you have been married and divorced before.
I have.
How old were you when you got married the first time?
So when I got married, I was very young. So I got married when I was 21, the summer before my senior year of college.
I would say that the average bride now is around the 30-ish range in Kentucky. I was reading some statistics as we were preparing for this, and it was talking about how people that get married before the age of 25 have a higher rate of divorce. You could have never told me that because we knew everything at 21.
As one does when they're 21.
Yes, absolutely. How long were you married?
I was married for 7 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Divorced. I got divorced right before my 28th birthday. I remember it like it was yesterday because it's so weird. But the long and short of it, you don't know who you are when you're that young and you're figuring out life. But then you also have this other person and like they're bringing in their past experience and their traumas and their sort of things. So then it's like you've got these two people that are trying to build a life together that might not have really experienced enough life themselves to enter into a marriage. I think for me, like I'll preface this by saying like I do believe that you can get married young and have it work and stay together.
Absolutely.
Like I totally believe that that's something that can totally happen, but I think that it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort and a lot of self exploration that I feel needs to come into that to have that longevity when you're starting out so young. For myself, I had a very interesting upbringing with like loss of parents and, you know, having to move around a lot, being, I call myself a recovering perfectionist. I was one of those kids that was very academic and like high achieving. That comes with a lot of pressures. Just like the concept of who I was as a person was just very interesting. I didn't have therapy when I was a kid. Like I didn't start going to therapy until I was maybe like, I think I was maybe like 25 or 26. You know what I mean? So I'm like 3 or 4 years into my marriage and I'm like, okay, let me start figuring myself out a little bit deeper. And the partner that I was with, he was a few years older than me with, his own like family history and challenges that he went through that I feel like he never really tapped into or unpacked. We would kind of see that come up when we were just navigating our relationship of like how we communicated with each other and how we navigated conflict and how we did conflict resolution. Looking back on it, it's like hindsight is 2020, right? Like you kind of see like all of these things that kind of came into play that led to us like ultimately not being together, because I think it was very shocking, like it was shocking for me, but shocking for the people around us when it's like, what do you mean? Like you guys aren't gonna stay together? Because from the outside looking in, like it really looked like we had and we did, like we had a really, loving marriage, but I think it just really came down to two people that were on a path together, and it just really felt like those paths were kind of going in two separate directions, you know what I mean? And having to make that really tough call of like, this journey that I'm on, like, is this a journey that we can continue together, or is this a journey that I need to do solo? It definitely took a lot. Thank God I was in therapy at that time, but it definitely took, a lot of work and, a lot of support in therapy to really be able to make that tough call. And I always call it like setting my life on fire, because that's literally how it felt. It's like strike a match and just drop it on the carpeted floor that's soaked in gasoline. That's literally how it felt. And just having to like navigate life and kind of rebuild myself, like after deciding to make that really tough decision. I survived though. I survived. I wouldn't trade, as tough as it was, I wouldn't trade the experience for anything. I feel like sometimes you have to go through really, really tough challenges and really, really tough things to like come out on the other side and kind of be the person that you were meant to be. And I just feel like I'm a much stronger, just freer, more self-assured version of myself. I don't think I'd be this version of me like had I not, gone through what I went through. It's definitely challenging, and it's not something I would wish on anybody. There is a lot of stigma around getting divorced and whispering in the corners like it's something that you can't talk about. And so that's why I was so excited to kind of come on and have this conversation, because even as a wedding planner, I get couples where it's like neither of them were married and they just happen to wait later in life to find their person.
Absolutely.
But sometimes I do have that dynamic where it's like, oh, by the way, like, this is my second marriage, and they feel like they have to like whisper it. And I'm like, no, like it's not anything to be ashamed of. It's something that happens every day. And sometimes you marry someone and they're not the right fit for you. And you kind of have to go through, that process of really trying to find who your best person is. And like that second time around, like, okay, that's the person that you're meant to be with. I really try to create a safe space for couples to like not feel like they need to, play it, like downplay. Like you can still celebrate, you can still do all the things, you can go as big or as small as you want, like just like any couple where it's two people that have never been married before. So I don't think that, being divorced and like getting married again takes away from like the love and the excitement and like all the fun that comes with planning a wedding.
You mentioned that you were in therapy
Mhm.
whenever you went through the divorce.
Mm-hmm.
Did you do any type of therapy with your husband at the time?
No, we had never done couples therapy, couples counseling. I think by the time when I started my own therapy journey, like I was just, going through my own like personal stuff not related to my relationship. And he had never been in therapy. And it was something that I had suggested, especially once I started going myself and like realizing how beneficial it was for me. I was like, hey, like, have you ever thought about this? Like, and he kind of never really seemed like he was too open to it. And it never really occurred to me to, be like, hey, maybe we should do couples counseling. But with my fiance, like we have been in couples counseling for years, and not because our relationship is difficult. We just had some really difficult communication challenges in the beginning. I'm very emotional. I'm a Cancer. He's an Aquarius, if you're into that. We just process things so differently. At that point in our relationship, I was like, look, like we're early in the early stages, but like I feel like this could really be something and go somewhere. And like I'm invested in this enough to want to figure this out. I was like, hey, like, are you open to couples therapy? And he totally was. And we've had the same couples therapist for like five years or something like that. And so it's really nice to have that support. And it doesn't have to be because, the relationship is in shambles. It could just be we want help with how to communicate better, or we want help with like how to understand each other better. I think couples counseling definitely makes a difference for sure, as someone who experienced being in a relationship where that wasn't something that we use as a resource versus now where it's something that it's part of our relationship maintenance.
How often do you go together now?
We go biweekly.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing. I
Yeah.
love that. Again, as I was reading about some statistics and stuff, I was reading about how therapy and counseling can reduce the divorce risk, basically,
Mm-hmm.
by
Mm-hmm.
almost 50%.
Yeah.
In today's world, we have so much going on. I think social media and the political climate that we're in, being able to figure that out and just even communicate and have a good home base before
Yeah.
walking out the door every day.
Absolutely. And it's definitely just like I even see the difference in my partner. Like he is so much more patient and like so much more, understanding of just like how I look at the world and process things. And it just makes so much more of a difference with just how we show up for each other on a daily basis.
I love that. I love that feedback. And I'm glad that he's that open to it.
Yeah.
I guess you were not doing wedding planning then during your first wedding, correct?
I was not. So
Okay.
I kind of hate to admit this, but I was one of those people that like planned their own wedding and found that they liked wedding planning. But I will preface that by saying I was already doing, I think by that point, no, I was still in college. Basically, I was like, this is kind of cool. Like, I don't hate this process. So it kind of opened up the door for me to become a wedding planner, which is kind of fun. But I definitely was not in the industry at all because I was still getting my education at the time.
Did you change your name after your first wedding?
I did. I did change my name. Then when I got divorced, I changed it back, but sort of. I didn't go to my original last name that's like on my birth certificate when I changed my last name because my mom, she wanted me and my sister to have the same last name. So I have a half sister who I love. We don't even say half sister, we just call each other sister. But
Yeah.
that was her logic, is like, I want my daughters to have the same last name. So my last name wasn't my father's last name. When I got divorced, I was like, you know what? I think I just want my family name. So I took my mom's maiden name as my last name.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then will you keep that name or will you be changing your name when you get married this time?
I'm gonna change it. I feel like it's gonna stick this time around. I was like, I'm not changing anything else after this. Like, this is it.
And you say you feel like it's going to stick this time. There are times where I've heard couples or, a bride or a groom say, like, I knew I shouldn't have gotten married. I
Mm.
knew that day I shouldn't have gotten married. Or I knew a couple weeks before I should stop it, but I didn't know how. I didn't know what to do. Did you know when you got married the first time it wasn't going to work?
I had zero clue. But
Okay.
I think that's what makes it difficult, especially in my situation. Because, like, there are situations where it's like, it's clear, like, either you do not need to marry this person because they're horrible, or, you know what I mean? My ex husband's a very loving human being and very sweet and very supportive. For me, like, I didn't have any of those feelings. I was like, here's this person. Like, I've known him for, we've been in a relationship for 3 years. He's got a very sweet family. It was all green flags. There were probably some red flags that I ignored that didn't necessarily have anything to do with him as a person, but just more of us being young or me still being in college. And there were times where I did have second thoughts, like before we got married, but we were still engaged. And I was like, oh, like, I don't know. Like, is this, a decision that like I should be making? But then when you factor in my family history of losing parents and having a family that kind of looked different from like mom, dad, brother, sister, and just really wanting that, that was something that we both really wanted. And we were trying to seek that and find that in each other, which sounds very harmless and very beautiful. And it is to a certain degree. But when you don't have the foundational pieces in place to be able to do that, that's where it's like you're not really setting yourself up for success in that way. The red flags were very subtle and didn't have anything to do with my partner. That's what made it difficult.
How long from the time that you were divorced until you met your now fiance?
That's kind of a funny story. So, and you met him. So,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, it's so funny. We knew each other in high school. So, we met in high
Oh,
school, like first day of high school, freshman year. So, we've known each other and been in each other's lives in some way, shape, or form since we were 14 years old, which is very
wow.
crazy to say. And we were friends in high school. I would like to, we didn't date in high school. We tried to maybe see if there was a possibility of us potentially dating. But it was like senior year, and like, he was going off to college, I was going off to college, and his logic was, like, I don't want to burn this friendship to the ground if I like go to college and basically be a dude in college. And I was like,
Yeah.
I get it, I understand. We kind of would like check in with each other like every few years or so, like, hey, how's school, how's life, moving back to the city, looking for a job, that sort of thing. But we hadn't really like shared space or like seen each other in like a decade. And so when I was kind of going through my divorce and just kind of like refiguring out life and what it was going to look like for me, and I was out here in these streets, I was like, I'm going to go out as many times as I can, which was like really fun but very exhausting. I don't know how people do this every weekend. I'm so tired. I was like, let's link up, come over, let's hang. That was our first time that we had seen each other in a decade, and it was very much like I don't think I've ever baby stepped anything so slow in my entire life. Like, I was like, hello, please come over and spend time with me. And then I was like, let's share a meal. This is not a date, and we will be splitting this check. I didn't want to rush into anything. I didn't want to label anything or make any assumptions or put any expectations on it. I just want to get to know this person, and I like spending time with him. Let's see where it goes. And I really appreciated that we were on the same page about that. He didn't pressure me. I was like, I'm not trying to make you be my boyfriend tomorrow. Let's just kind of take it day by day and see where it goes. It was almost like kind of picking up where we left off when we were in school from like a friend perspective, but the feelings kind of grew very naturally and organically. So, full transparency, I'm feeling some things, and I'm like not even technically divorced yet. We had the conversation of like, we're not gonna call anything until the ink is dry on the paper and I move into my apartment and hit the reset button on my life a little bit. He was very, very supportive through that process, even though I'm a very suffer in silence kind of girl. I don't like people to see me sweat, and I have a problem with letting people see me in a vulnerable state. And he just did a really good job of just really showing up when I didn't ask him to or expect him to. And even the day that I signed my divorce papers, I was like, hey, my ex-husband is coming over. We're signing these papers. And he was like, are you going to be okay? And I was like, probably not. But I'll be fine. And he was like, do you want me to come over? And I'm like, no, like, you don't need to do that. I was living all the way on the north side. He lives south. I was like, no, like, that's a lot. I'll be fine. Send me a text after or something like that. And did the paper signing. My ex-husband left. I was very devastated. 5 minutes later, I hear a knock on my door, and I'm like, who's knocking on my door? Like, this man just left. He better not be back here. Just kidding. Let's rip up the papers. And it was my now fiance on my back porch. He'd been sitting there for 45 minutes. He was like, I've been here the whole time getting eaten by mosquitoes on your porch. And he had beer and tacos and an overnight bag. I told you not to come, but I'm happy that you came. And that was the moment where I was like, this person's probably going to be it for me.
I love that.
Yeah.
Look at him doing so good.
I know. Doing great.
Fast forward to wedding planning now.
Yeah.
From the time that you got engaged until the wedding, how long is that going to be?
So we got engaged 2 weeks before Christmas last year, and we decided to do December of 2026. We are more than a little over a year out from the wedding. And we really just wanted to just enjoy the planning process, and we want to enjoy being engaged, and you know, not feel like we need to like rush to like make any decisions. Like, we have a date and a venue, and we got a stationer, so we're just kind of like baby stepping our way into making the decisions, and you know, being fiscally responsible and trying to save money at the same time.
As you do as an adult.
Yes, I know. It's very stressful. Everyone's like, oh, like, you're planning a wedding, but you're a wedding planner, so that makes it easier. I'm like, no, it doesn't. It makes
Because
it
I know
less
where all
fun.
that money's going to go. Yes,
Exactly. He loves all the big flashy things. And I'm like, honey,
Of course.
that flower arrangement is $5,000. He's like, oh, okay.
Looking at this wedding, are you going to wear a traditional wedding dress, or do you know yet?
I'm doing all the things. It's my fiance's first time down the aisle.
Okay.
For me, it's my second, but I feel like when I got married the first time, you know, we were young and in college. Absolutely. And didn't have adult money. I'm doing it the way that I would have liked to have done it the first time. We're doing the elaborate ceremony. Well, TBD on the ceremony, but we're doing the ceremony, and I do plan on wearing a really fabulous gown. We're really doing all the things. What makes it super fun is everyone else is equally as excited as we are. Even my friends and family who have seen me get married before, they're just super happy and super excited, and are very like welcoming of my fiance with open arms. So it's nice to like have that additional support as we like move into the next phase of our lives together.
How many will you have in your wedding party?
I don't know what this man's doing with his guys, but I have 6. Just like keeping it intimate, or at least trying to. I just thought about my best girls and who do I feel like have held me down through all the phases of life, and it's these 6 ladies. So I think he'll probably have 6. He might have more. Hopefully it's not like 10 on his side, but I was like, do whatever you want, babe. He's got a lot more friends than I do.
No, were any of those bridesmaids in your first wedding?
We didn't have a wedding party when I got
Okay.
married the first time.
Okay.
One of the girls I've known since middle school, and so I don't think she came to my wedding the first time. But aside from that, these are all people that I met post wedding.
Yep. As an adult.
Yeah, exactly.
We live such chapters and times in our lives. I was asked a question the other day at an event. It's like, who is your best friend? And I'm like, well, I have friends from all different chapters of my life. They're all best friends from that chapter of my life. Will anyone walk you down the aisle, or will you walk by yourself? Or
That's
do you
a
know
tough
yet?
one. Honestly, that's probably one of the toughest decisions that I've had to make as a bride to be. My stepfather passed away when I was 8 years old, and I was very, very close with him. So I try to like think about who else could I, potentially have fill that role. I didn't meet my biological father until last year. And so that's been a challenge to navigate. Do I want to include him or do I not? If I do, he's going to have expectations and expect to want to walk me down the aisle. So that's a whole thing. But I definitely have thought, like, I just want it to be meaningful. Like, I have a best
Yeah.
friend from high school. Like, he's like a brother to me. So I've definitely thought about having him walk me down the aisle, or I've also thought about having my sister walk me down the aisle, which I think would be super meaningful.
I'll be anxious to see what you end
Yeah.
up doing.
So I didn't walk down an aisle the first time we got married at City Hall. So
Okay.
yeah, so it'll be interesting. Maybe I should just put names in a hat and just pull some names out of the hat at this
Literally.
point.
Yeah. Everybody can come over for a cookout and we're just going to draw names out of the hat.
Exactly.
Yeah. One of the things that I did want to talk a little bit about is a registry. Maybe because you got married in City Hall or at City Hall and you were still in college at that point, it may have been a little different for you versus if you had been like 23 or 24 right out of college. Did you have a registry at all at that for that wedding?
Yeah, we
Okay.
did. And because we moved out literally that fall after we got married. So we did have a registry. It was mostly basic house things. Um, yeah, but I think even then it wasn't super extensive. It was like super short. I didn't know what I was doing. What do you need when you have a place to live? But this time around, we'll definitely have a registry, but it'll be a little bit more fun and just either upgrading things that maybe we need to replace or getting an appliance that I wouldn't normally want to spend money on for myself. So I'll definitely have a different approach to a registry, but we'll still definitely have one for sure. I feel like our friends and family would be annoyed if we didn't have one. What do you mean you don't have a registry?
I feel like having this conversation with you, it's like you're getting married for the first time
It
because you're
does. Like, it
so
really
excited about
feels
it.
like that.
It was literally a chapter in your life before it's closed. The whole book is
Mhm.
closed. It happened, but it's not there. Like it just you've moved on and you have the bridal party that is going to be there with you. They were not even in your life at that point. I would say that's probably the case for most people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a learning experience. And I'm a different me than I was when I was 21, and this is a different partner that I'm with. It just all feels very different, and it just naturally feels very new.
I love that. Are there any resources or websites or podcasts or blogs or anything that you are aware of or that you've ran across as you've been planning for other couples that are planning their second wedding?
Hmm. I wouldn't necessarily say anything specific to second weddings, but as a bride to be and a planner, I really like brides.com. They have such good articles about, like, obviously like planning stuff, but they have a lot of really good articles about just like, family dynamics and some of those other things. Like, I've even sent well, she's already married, but I sent a bride an article from brides.com that was about what you do and how you approach having to fire a bridesmaid, because that was something that she was dealing with.
Mm,
And I was like, hey, like, I found this article, let me know what you think.
yeah.
So I love brides.com. From a relationship standpoint, I love the Gottman Institute. So that was something that our couples therapist told us about. And like, there's a website, like they have Instagram, they've got blogs, and just like anything that you can think of as far as like relationship resources. That's one of our favorite go-tos for how to communicate, or like if there's a specific scenario that you need help navigating. I think it's like an app. It's like a it's like cards or decks or something like that, and you basically download it on your phone, and it's like different categories, and you can do like conversation starters for like you and your partners. I've grown to really love little kind of things like that can just like help bring us together on a daily basis. So I would say those are my big two for anything planning, but also to water the garden of your relationship as you're planning.
I love that. I will say too that anytime that you are meeting with a vendor,
Mm-hmm.
do not feel obligated to tell them it's your second
Yeah,
marriage.
you
I feel
don't
like
need
that
to.
comes
It's not
up a
their
lot.
business.
I don't want to say we don't care, but
Yeah.
it doesn't affect in any way, shape, or form how a vendor is going to perform on your wedding day. We don't necessarily want you to be coming back for business all the time, but it means a lot
Right.
when you come back to the vendor because you had a great relationship with them. They know who you are. They've worked with you. You know your families.
Huh.
If you felt comfortable with that vendor and you liked them the first time, they would love to have you back a second time. There's no judgment or anything behind that.
It's not our place to judge whether this is your first marriage or your fifth. We're just there to provide the best support that we can. And honestly, just because I've been through it myself, if I do know that it's a second or third time down the aisle, it just makes me want to love on you a little bit more, because unfortunately there's still stigma out there, and you might have a Aunt Sue who's being grumpy and giving you a hard time because you're getting married again. I understand both sides of how people can kind of be treated when they've been divorced. It just gives me a reason to just give you a little extra love while we're planning.
Do you have any parting words or advice for couples planning a second wedding?
Make the day however you want to make it, and make it your own. Whatever you want to do, don't let the fact that this is second or third wedding, don't let that deter you from doing what you want. Like, go all out. It's still your day. It's still about you and your partner. Just lean into that and just have a amazing, fabulous wedding. Jet off to Europe if you want, or like have a 300-person gathering. Like, literally do whatever it is that you want, and then your vendor team and your planner, like, we're just here to support that vision and make it happen.
For more information about Simply Love Studio or to schedule your wedding consultation, go to simplylovestudio.com.